Today on my ramble about financial data, I'm going to talk a little bit about financial data marketplaces. So there are dozens now of financial data marketplaces, and if you're out there trying to find financial data for your project, whatever it happens to be, you will inevitably come across some of these marketplaces. If you're Googling for financial data, all of these marketplaces are trying to optimize to find you when you're out there searching for that data. So just to give you a little bit of perspective on financial data marketplaces, I'm going to talk about it today so you know what to look for in a financial data marketplace, what to avoid, and some of the questions you should be asking when you're picking a marketplace, if you're going to pick a marketplace. Because you inevitably have two choices. You can either go to each data provider directly, and that has the advantage that you are going directly to the source. You have the relationship with that data provider, or you can go to a marketplace that kind of consolidates data providers, and that has the major advantage of usually you're only connecting one way. So however you get delivery from that marketplace, your dev team only has to deal with that one provider because they're on the back end integrating with each of the different data providers that are involved in the marketplace. So that's the biggest advantage, is that it's just going to be a little bit easier to connect to the data. The disadvantage is you're going through a middleman, and let's say that there's something wrong with that data, or there's a problem. Well, now you're going through the marketplace, and then it's getting passed off to the data provider, and it can be slower to get service, or there can be some complexities in buying data and licensing data through a third-party vendor. So let me just ramble off a handful of the marketplaces that you might be familiar with. There's IEX Cloud, Quandl, AWS has a financial data marketplace now. Snowflake has a marketplace of data. Crux has a marketplace. Bloomberg, FactSet, Quilk, Benzinga, QuantConnect, DXC. The list goes on and on. Intrinio actually used to have its own financial data marketplace, and I helped run that marketplace for years. And we stopped being a marketplace because there's so many of them out there now that we didn't think it made sense for us to try to organize and catalog all this data. We prefer to have an individual relationship with each of our clients. So what to ask when you're choosing a financial data marketplace? The first thing that you need to establish is that if you're building your business on financial data and it's critical for your operations, you don't want to self-sign up. You don't want to just go to that website, put in your credit card, and buy that data. It seems easy, and you can do that for testing, but before too long, you're going to need to have a business relationship with that marketplace. If you're able to sign up and just connect to an API and get going right out of the gate, it's too good to be true. That is never going to work for your business. You will be violating or running into problems with display. You will be probably violating the terms of the actual marketplace's contracts if you use that data for a business purpose. If you're an individual and you just want to trade, build your own tools and experiment, that's great. You can self-sign up in a lot of different places for data from an API without talking to anyone. But if you're running a business, you need to have a business relationship. So first thing to do is to just contact the sales team of the marketplace you're looking for, and start paying attention to how that experience is when you talk to that team. Are they responsive? Are they knowledgeable? And do they give you information up front, or are they kind of hiding things? And are they pleasant to work with? Because this is the start of what will probably be a multi-year relationship for you with that marketplace. So don't self-sign up. That is not a good idea, because you are going to need to have contracts in place to use any of the different data sets that you get from that marketplace, and for that you're going to have to talk to their team. So when you get connected to the team at that marketplace that you're interested in talking to, the first thing to ask is, where's this data coming from? There is this very nice fallacy that you can just get all the data from them. It's coming from the marketplace, but that's not realistic. Behind the scenes, though, each marketplace is connecting to data providers that specialize in one kind of data or another. Intrinio specializes in market data and fundamentals. We make all that data ourselves, but we don't go out and also make estimates data or ETF data or mutual fund data. We work with partners for that who specialize in those types of data. So when you're talking to that marketplace, ask them, where does this data come from? Maybe you're interested in ETF data. You can get that data from Intrinio. You can get it from probably a bunch of other marketplaces as well. But when you're talking to the representative of the marketplace, say, hey, who's the provider behind the scenes of this data? If they can't or won't tell you, that should be a big red flag, because you're going to want to use that data for a business purpose. And the data providers behind the marketplace, they're very careful about business licensing, because that's how they make their money. If you're going to display that data or redistribute it in some way, maybe via an API or a web application, or even use it internally for analysts, the data provider that is providing data to the marketplace is going to want to know about it. And so if the marketplace won't or can't tell you where that data came from, that should make you very worried that either you are going to use that data temporarily and do all the work to integrate it, and then the marketplace will come back and say, hey, actually, surprise, you need to have a contract with the data vendor that's behind the scenes, or we need to put some sort of restrictions on the data. Or maybe that data is coming from a disreputable source. It's not actually being licensed properly. So ask, who's the data coming from? And the marketplace will probably be a little hesitant to tell you, because they want you to buy the data through their marketplace, not go around and have a direct relationship with the data vendor. So that leads to the next question, which is, how does the marketplace make money? What's their business model? There are many different ways that marketplaces make money. Some of them charge you to use their platform to find data. Some of them, they will take a revenue share of the data. So when you buy a $1,000 subscription to a data set from a marketplace, that marketplace gets some percentage of that $1,000 and then passes the rest through to the vendor. There are other marketplaces that wholesale data, so they will pay a flat fee to a data provider to be able to resell that data on their platform. And depending on the business model, this can influence how much you end up paying versus going directly. So what Intrinio does with our partners is we have a revenue share. Intrinio gets a percentage of third-party data that we sell, but we have every one of our vendors that we work with, we have an agreement that you would get the same price whether you came through Intrinio or you went through the vendor. So we never have like a markup where you pay more to come from Intrinio. Intrinio gets a percentage for marketing, selling that data, but your end users, you as the customer, end up paying the same amount. That may or may not be true for other marketplaces that you work with. So that's a good thing to ask. How is the marketplace making money? So the next question is about delivery. And if you're going with a marketplace, delivery is why you're going to that marketplace. That should be the primary reason, is that you have, they've already done a bunch of integrations on the back end, and most of the data that you get from that marketplace should be available through the same delivery mechanism. And the reason why that's important is because it saves you money as a data buyer. You don't have to go out and make a bunch of different API integrations, and your developers don't have to support a lot of different API integrations. You can just have one integration and support it, whether that marketplace offers, direct database connection, FTP, API connection, maybe CSV download, or something more sophisticated like through Snowflake or Amazon. However they're delivering that data, you want to ask, can I get everything on one delivery mechanism, or do I need to use multiple delivery mechanisms? Or maybe even I get connected directly to the data provider eventually, and now you're maintaining 2 or 3 different integrations on that marketplace. That should influence your decision about which marketplace to choose. Some of them, everything's integrated. It's one API. Some of it's integrated, some of it's not, and you have to go back to have those direct relationships with the vendors. So the next thing that you want to ask that team is about changing out of providers. So this is something that I've noticed happens as marketplaces are kind of figuring out their business model, they get going. They are on the back end negotiating all kinds of complicated reseller agreements with the vendors that are in the marketplace. So remember I mentioned they can wholesale, they can have a revenue share, they can offer free trials, maybe they can't. As they're negotiating these agreements with their data providers, sometimes negotiations go poorly for the marketplaces and they have to change data providers. Well, how is that going to affect you as the data consumer on that marketplace if they go and change that data provider 6 months, a year after you started buying data from that marketplace. You want to ask that team, do you have multi-year agreements with your data providers? Have you changed data providers in the past? Is there some sort of like track record of this? Or how long have you had these relationships with these data providers? If they've had the relationship for a very short amount of time, that might make you a little worried because maybe it's not going very well. If they've been with that data provider for a long time, there's a big history of that relationship, then that is a reason why the data provider in the marketplace won't change things, because they have a lot of customers, they have a lot of business, a lot of revenue riding on that relationship at the marketplace. And if they were to change that relationship, maybe switch out providers, they would lose all that revenue. So that's a heavy incentive for them to keep the data providers in the marketplace that they have. And the reason why this matters, again, is that if you are integrating data, buying data from a data provider, and then they go off and change some of the underlying data providers that you're using, your integration is going to break. The data provider that they change to might have different fields, they might have different frequency of updating the data, different data quality, different support mechanisms. All these are problems for you because the data that you got and are relying on inside of your application for your own end users, be they analysts or retail users on your website, or you're running a quantitative black box model, it doesn't really matter. If your data sources change, it is very disruptive to your business. And so that is another big red flag. If those data providers have changed or they don't have a long-term relationship, a good working relationship with the marketplace, that is something that you might want to consider going to a different source for that data. Finally, when you are talking to that marketplace, their sales representatives that are helping you to understand how the marketplace works, ask how licensing works of the data. Do you just sign a contract with the marketplace to license every data set that's available within that marketplace? Some data providers don't allow that, and some very good ones. Some data providers that Intrinio works with, they want you to sign a relationship directly with the data provider, and that is complex. It adds some stress and headache up front because now you're signing an agreement maybe with the marketplace and with some of the vendors that are in the marketplace directly. But that can be a big advantage for your business in the long run, because now you are kind of protected. That if something goes wrong with the marketplace, the data vendor changes things, you already have an agreement with the data provider. You have the option to stay with that data provider at the terms of your agreement long term, and that can be a big advantage because stability is super important in the data business when you're buying those data sets. So there are a lot of data providers out there. There are lots of pros and cons, but make sure that if you're a business and your business relies on data, that you talk to their team. Find out some of the key things about where they get their data, how does the marketplace make money, what delivery mechanisms are available, have they changed providers in the past, or do they have long-term relationships with their vendors, and are upfront ask, am I going to need to sign an agreement with the data provider directly, or am I going to just need to sign one agreement with the marketplace? And think through a lot of the consequences of those answers. You want a data provider in a marketplace that's reliable, that's been in business a while, that has long-standing relationships with vendors, and that is upfront and honest about how the fee structure will work, how the marketplace makes money, and how they're going to support you when you ask questions. Are they passing it through to the vendor, or are they answering them directly? So there's a lot to consider. There are a lot of marketplaces out there. Some of them are better than others. And if you're interested in these types of questions, you can talk to us, talk to our team. We'll tell you why we don't operate as a marketplace anymore, why we like to have that relationship, because we love to give all this information to our customers directly. So good luck out there sourcing your data.